The Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Book 6. The Violet Keystone. Chapter 17.
A blue monster,
added Adris. Tal and Crow huddled down behind the bodies, and Adris slid to the wall as they watched a huge man-like creature come cautiously around the bend in the grand parade. He was bright blue and had shimmering metallic legs. He carried what looked like a chain in his hand. "What is it?" asked Tal. Crow stood up. He seemed nervous, but in a strange way. "Jarek!" he called. "We're friends." "What are you doing?" hissed Tal. He felt a momentary panic. This was where Crow betrayed him. He had to do something before someone else came around the bend, following the blue man. Tal started in recognition, forgetting all thoughts of Crow and his possible treachery. He'd know that white blonde hair anywhere, even if it was topped by something that looked like a crown. That was part of being war chief of the Ice Carls, he supposed. He was about to stand up and shout "Mila," when a shadow flashed past him, bellowing like thunder, its arms spread wide.
Adris!
This shout was met with a cry of "Adris!" and an answering shadow leaped into the air from behind Mila. The two of them met halfway, with a clap of thunder that shook the mirror on the floor again and made both Tal and Mila wince as they shared the shock of the Storm Shepherd's meeting. Shouting "Mila!" after that seemed a bit pointless. Instead, Tal got up slowly and walked forward. He felt strangely nervous. He hadn't seen Mila since they'd parted company down in the Underfolk levels, he to climb the Red Tower again, and she to go to the ice. An awful lot had happened since then. To both of them, it seemed. To make matters worse, Tal realized he had never really been sure whether they were friends or not. They had been comrades in adversity, but had also fought and troubled each other a lot. What was going to happen now? Maybe Mila still wanted to kill him, as she had when they'd first met. Mila was thinking similar thoughts as she watched Tal approach. She wasn't certain of her own feelings. There was a familiar irritation at the sight of him, but that was coupled with a relief that he was still alive and looked unscathed from the Hall of Nightmares. They met in the middle of the corridor, ignoring their two spirit shadows, who were still spinning around and chasing each other up and down the corridor in sheer joy. "Mila," said Tal, and stopped. "Tal," replied Mila. A heavy silence fell between them. Then both spoke at once. "I'm glad you're alive," said Tal. "I met your mother," said Mila. "My mother? Is she all right? I wasn't sure if the antidote—" "She is weak, but well, and under our protection down in the Concord levels. She sends you her love, and knows you will do what must be done. Sushin has the Violet Keystone. My half, I mean," said Tal hurriedly. It seemed easier to talk about that than anything personal. "He'll use it to destroy the Veil. We have to stop him." "We know," said Mila, with that calm, confident tone that always annoyed him. "That's why we're here. Where's Sushin?" I don't know," replied Tal awkwardly. "We only just got here, but he's opened up the audience chamber and probably got into the Violet Tower already, so we have to hurry." "Then why are we standing and talking?" snapped Mila. She turned back and shouted, "Hurry up!" She pushed past Tal and strode down toward the open doors. The enormous blue man who had stood behind her looked at Tal, a look that scared and shook him. There was madness deep in his eyes, and Tal knew it could erupt into full force at any time. "You must be Jarek," he said weakly, and clapped his fists together. "I'm Tal. I'm a sort of honorary Far Raider." Jarek did not return the greeting, but continued after Mila. Tal was just about to follow him in turn when he saw Ebbet and another Ice Carl, a young woman who must have been some sort of apprentice crone or something. She had crone robes on anyway, though her eyes were a remarkably bright blue. "Great Uncle Ebbet!" Tal called, and ran over to him, embracing the old man with sudden fervor. "I am so glad I didn't kill you." "Then let go," replied Ebbet, before you strangle me to make sure of your bat's job." Tal laughed and let go. He suddenly felt so much better. Having Mila and Ebbet with him made the odds so much better for facing Sushin. "This is the crone Malin," said Ebbet. "Very interesting person. Could teach you a thing or two." I'm sure," stammered Tal. He clapped his fist to her, too, and unlike Jarek, she answered, though it was more automatic than heartfelt. "I know much about you," said Malin coolly. "From Mila?" asked Tal. "No," said Malin. "The war chief has not the time for speaking tales. I have walked through her mind with the other crones. I have seen her memories, seen Einar through her eyes, and you." "Oh, good," said Tal weakly, as he tried to remember how he would have showed up in Mila's memories. Not too well, he suspected. "Ebbet, Sushin has the violet keystone," he said as they hurried after Mila. "And the Empress and the Light Vizier are dead, and they told me that Sushin is the shadow pawn of Sharakor." "Shadow pawn? Shadow pawn?" exploded Ebbet. "They said that?" "Yes," replied Tal, surprised by the violence of the old man's reaction. "What does it mean?" "No idea," said Ebbet, "but it sounds bad." "Hello, Tal." "Oh, hello, Adris," replied Tal, waving at the spirit shadow above him. "Adris says you went back to Ymir and you stuck him in a funny suit and he got eaten by a thing. And then when you returned here, he got put in a box. And after that, he had to climb up a really smelly pipe," said Adris sternly. "You should be more careful with him. He has a weak constitution." "I'll be more careful," said Tal mechanically. Somehow this reunion wasn't going as well as might be expected. "Ebbet, do you know how to get into the Violet Tower?" "I have an inkling or two," said Ebbet. He looked down and tugged his crystal breastplate away from his chest. A strange gesture that Tal supposed was meant to be an indication of modesty, or maybe was just a new kind of twitch. "Lokar is free, by the way," continued Tal earnestly. "She's going to try and replace the red keystone. She said that it might be able to keep the veil going for a little while, even if the violet keystone is unsealed." "Lokar is the guardian of the red keystone?" asked Ebbet, raising one frosty eyebrow. "Lokar! Whoever will they think of next?" "But you knew that," said Tal. "She's Lector Jarnal's cousin." His voice trailed off as they reached the doors, and he stepped inside for the first time. Into the audience chamber. Into a vast hall, as large or larger than the assembly of the chosen he knew down in the colorless midsection of the castle between yellow and green. The audience chamber had a domed ceiling that was bright with thousands of sunstones around the rim, but stretched into darkness at its apex. The floor was tiled in all 7 colors of the spectrum, but every 8th tile was a mirror, reflecting the light from the sunstones that rimmed the dome, so that light flowed and shimmered everywhere, making it very difficult to see anything in the huge room. Tal shielded his eyes with his arm. He could make out Mila, Jarek, and Crow ahead of him, and there was some sort of construction right in the middle of the chamber, but that was all. He could not see Sushin, or any other doors, stairs, or other exits or entrances. There was no clear way from here to the 7th tower. "Come," said Ebbet, seeing the question on his face. "The answer lies in the throne."